Hey YouTube, Kieran here, bringing you guys my Yu-Gi-Oh! Fluffal deck profile for post Soul Fusion Booster Pack. Wanted to bring you all an update to this deck profile and thought making it a little closer to Halloween was a little more appropriate for sure. It's a really awesome deck. We finally got the rest of the support for the Fluffal deck, including Frightfur Patchwork, which is a very needed card for the deck. A lot of you say it was a little too late, but I think it's better late than never with that card for sure in this deck. The whole point of the deck is fusion summoning into much more terrifying versions of the Fluffal monsters with a bunch of variety and different effects based on which fusion you go for. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, I run 3 Fluffal Bear. I was going back and forth between how many versions or how many numbers of this card I wanted to run with the deck. I decided to settle on 3. It's just really good for recycling your polymerization, and also you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to set one toy vendor directly from your deck. You have to tribute this card to target a polymerization in your graveyard and add to your hand. But what's great is you can just set the toy vendor, which then sets up your Fluffal Wing plays. So you don't really need to waste a normal summon off of this card, which is very important and why I decided to run this card at 3 for sure. Plus, it's just, Fluffal fodder for your Frightfur fusions as well. So that definitely does come in handy there. Probably one of the most important Fluffals in the deck, though, is Fluffal Dog. This and Wing just help with so much, whether it be draw power with the Wing and then search with Dog. When this card is normal or special summon from the hand, you can add 1 Edgem Sabers or 1 Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand, except Fluffal Dog. You can only use this effect once per turn. So it says special summon from the hand as well. They did that intentionally, obviously, because you run Toy Vendor, and Toy Vendor can special summon from the hand when you draw them. So meaning if you, use Toy Vendor and you reveal Fluffal Dog with the effect, you'll get the search effect still. Only thing that kind of sucks is that it only can search out Edgem Saber, but it can search out any of the Fluffal monsters, so that's still the one benefit there. And the fact, I guess, that, Edgem Saber still counts for a lot of the different fusion monsters still definitely does come in handy. And I also run 2 Fluffal Penguin. This one helps just for draw power and just easy special summon. During your main phase, you can special summon 1 Fluffal monster from your hand, except for Fluffal Penguin. This effect can only be used once while this card is face up on the field, and if this card is sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon of a Frightfur fusion monster, you could draw 2 cards, then discard 1 card. You can only use this effect of Penguin once per turn. It's an easy special summon from the hand, so once again, just like the Toy Vendor, you can benefit from special summoning cards like Fluffal Dog to the field, so remember that. And the discard draw can also help with just some basic setup you might want, whether it be for, let's say, Fluffal Wing in the graveyard, or just any other one, because you use cards like Frightfur Fusion, which banish cards from the graveyard for the fusion summon as well. So setting up in the graveyard can definitely be helpful for your plays as well. And we've been talking about Fluffal Wing enough, so we'll get to that one next. 2 Fluffal Wing. Also, if this card is in your graveyard and you can control Toy Vendor, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 Fluffal monster in your graveyard, banish it, and if you do, draw 1 card. Then you can send 1 Toy Vendor you control to the graveyard. If you draw 1 card, you can only use this effect of Wings once per turn. It's just a draw 2 and then search, so making the most bang for your buck for your Toy Vendor that you activate with the bear, because most of the time that's how I search and activate it from the field. I really don't like when I either have to activate it from my hand myself, wasting a bear to the graveyard and then activating it, but plenty of options, which we'll get to as well, just to send Wing to the graveyard. We've already spoke of the Penguin method, but most of the time, even if basically use it for a fusion with polymerization, that also comes in handy. Don't forget, Fluffal Wing is a level 1 as well, so you can get the most benefit when you make Link Karibo with it as well, setting it up in the graveyard, and Link Karibo has that arrow, so you can go for your fusion right where it's pointing to as well. And for the one-ofs, for the Fluffal monsters, I run 1 Fluffal Cat and 1 Fluffal Owl. With Owl, when it's normal or special summon from the hand, you can add 1 polymerization from your deck to your hand. You can pay 500 life points to fusion summon 1 Frightfur fusion monster from your extra deck. Using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials, you can only use 1 Fluffal Owl effect per turn. It only wants that turn, so it really depends what you want to go for. If you have the polymerization in your hand already and you don't need to search it, you can obviously use the second effect, and then depending on the Frightfur fusion you go for, then use the polymerization to maybe make something bigger like Sabertooth, and then just reuse the fusion plays. And then with Fluffal Cat, it just helps to recycle polymerization when it's sent to the graveyard as a fusion material for a fusion summon. Plus, Cat's also a level 1, so you have another Link Karibo target there also. But most of the time, you just want that polymerization recycle, because definite times when you can just make plenty of fusion options is when Cat definitely does come in handy. And then for the Edge Imp monsters, I run 3 Edge Imp Chain, probably the best Edge Imp overall, just because it has 2 very good effects. When this card declares an attack, you can add an Edge Imp Chain from your deck to your hand. But the more used effect, I would say, is if this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Frightfur card from your deck to your hand. You can only use 1 Edge Imp Chain effect per turn, and only once that turn. So the fact that we run plenty of Frightfur cards, whether it be the new Patchwork or even just fusion, search out what you need using Chain. It definitely does come in handy. All you have to do is send it to the graveyard too, so you can even just sit on it and your opponent can attack into it. You'll get the search. Most of the time, if you want an additional Edge Imp monster to use for fusion, you can attack with it and then rely on that. You have plenty of options, so definite 3 of Chain in the deck. And then for the 1 of, I run 1 Edge Imp Sabers. You only need the 1 just because you can recycle this card in the graveyard for all your different plays. So remember that with this card. All you have to do is also, if it's in your graveyard, place a card from your hand on top of your deck, special summon this card in defense, and you can only use the effect once per turn. But also it works very well with Toy Vendor, since you can then obviously place Fluffal monsters on top of the deck, use Toy Vendor, and then if obviously you're going to reveal the Fluffal monster, get that special summon, and then hopefully one of their effects, if it be ones like Dog or Owl. And then lastly, for the non-Fluffal Frightfur related monsters, 1 Glow Up Bulb with all the Earth options, mainly being your Fluffal Dog on the field, and then having Glow Up Bulb for graveyard setup. You can easily go into Naturia Beast, which Naturia Beast works with a lot of different plays and decks, and this one is no excuse either. Being able to use that Synchro Summon for spell negation shuts down a lot of decks, so I like to have that option available to us in the deck. Plus, I run Foolish Burial, so if you don't have a target for the Foolish Burial with like Edge Imp Sabers already being in the graveyard, you can set it up for Glow Up Bulb, and then that send to the graveyard with Glow Up Bulb also does help, just because of the cards you could send off the top of the deck to the graveyard. And then lastly, I run 2 Effect Veiler. This is in here, more of a budget kind of standard. If you have Ash Blossom, I would recommend putting that in instead, just for the search restriction that Ash can do against your opponent, obviously. Effect Veiler definitely does come in handy, because monster effects can also be kind of pesky against some of the Frightfur fusions that you want to go for, so it helps. Like I said, if you don't have the Ash, definitely use Effect Veiler or Ghost Ogre, you name it. It's that final hand trap spot that I like to fill in for this deck for sure. And that is it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells, I run 3 Toy Vendor, a very important card in the deck. Not just for the fact that it has the special summon card if you reveal a Fluffal, more for the fact when it's sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Edge Imp Sabers or Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand. You can use this effect with Foolish Burial Goods, sending it directly to the graveyard to get the search, or you can use it with Wing, which is most of the time what I prefer to do. Obviously, you have to get it onto the field, which Fluffal Bear definitely helps out with. But overall, both options are available to you, and both options definitely do help with this search, grabbing whatever card you need for your play. And I run 3 of the new Frightfur Patchwork. Sadly, these things move like wildfire with people at my locals and, just a bunch of my friends as well. So I basically gave away all of mine to my friends, so when it came to do the deck profile, I only had 1, and I have been trying desperately from booster packs just to pull my own as well. Might just come down to buying them online myself. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to buy some more booster packs later on as well, so we'll see how we pull. But moving on, basically, Frightfur Patchwork, you add 1 Edge Imp and 1 Polymerization from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 Patchwork per turn. It's searchable off chain, but it gives you 2 cards, so it's very, very helpful with the deck. So a definite 3 of for sure. Just being able to search and then search some more definitely does come in handy for sure. And I also, for the one-ofs for the Frightfur cards, I run one Frightfur Fusion. I'm having this at 1 just because it's a big banish play, and most of the time you can rely on Polymerization, which we'll get to in a bit of what we run in the deck as well. But just the one-of, you banish from your field or graveyard to Fusion Summon a Frightfur monster, so late game it definitely does come in handy. And like I said, it's searchable with cards like Edgem Chain, and you have that option available to you to go for with Frightfur Fusion. But there's a lot of stuff you want to use in the graveyard as well, so Polymerization, I find, definitely is the most preferred method for fusion summoning. Unless you want to use Frightfur Factory, which banishes Polymerization to allow you to fusion summon, so definitely helpful there. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one of your banished Frightfur Fusion, add it to your hand. You can only use each effect of Factory once per turn. So it's another Foolish Burial Goods target as well for effects, so that definitely does help also in that sense if you don't or already use the Toy Vendor effect that turn. And lastly, I run one Frightfur Reborn. I was moving back and forth between Monster Reborn and this card. If you want Monster Reborn, if you don't have the Frightfur Reborn, you can obviously put that card in, or a third Ash Blossom, or Effect Veiler for hand trap targets. But I like this card also because it has a graveyard effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard, except during the turn it was sent to the graveyard. Then target one of your banished Fluffal or Frightfur monsters, return it to the graveyard to reuse for the resources, which definitely does help with cards like Wing for sure. But just a one-of, another search card, so I like that option available to you, just like the other Frightfur cards. So just remember that with this one. And probably the most important spell card that I was definitely not getting to first in the video, Polymerization. 3 of this card. It's your fusion basis for a lot of your plays. Works with Frightfur Factory. Searchable with for Patchwork as well. So you'll always have this available to you, which early on before we had Patchwork, that was the most difficult thing for me, just opening up Polymerization with all my other ones. I resorted to Recycling Plant, Fusion Sage, you name it, but in the end, Patchwork is just the best card for sure in this deck. And I also run one instant fusion. Now I run this just because we have the Frightfur Sheep option to special summon this card out. Just remember with Sheep, you're not going to get the special summon since it wasn't destroyed by your opponent's card effect. But it can help just to get that one fusion out on the field. And then you can use it for Sabertooth, obviously, to special summon out easier instead of using up all your other Fluffal and Edgem monsters. And 3 Foolish Burial Goods. This is to send all those spell cards I was talking about earlier to the graveyard to benefit from their effects as well. When you don't use Wing, this is the next best thing, obviously, to get it in the graveyard. And I also run 2 Twin Twisters. I like this card in this deck a lot, and it helps just because Backrow that can stop negations of your fusions really kills this deck when you're trying to go for your big ones. So if you can clear the Backrow out and then your opponent has other cards on the field, like let's say cards like Frightfur Tiger can take care of, then you have no fear with this deck and its destruction or attack capabilities. Like even with Frightfur Wolf, when you're attacking multiple times, you fear like Mirror Force or anything that can stop your attacks, Twin Twister takes care of that. Plus putting cards like Wing into the graveyard definitely does help also. And same basic concept for Call by the Grave. When I use, Frightfur Tiger's effect, I want to have a Tiger resolve on the field and stay there. I don't want my opponent to Ghost Ogre me or, Effect Veiler me, just like I would them, obviously. So Call the Grave, just there for that good option. And I also run the Foolish Burial to finish off the main deck. This card is here for Edgem Sabers and Glow Bulb, you name it. Like I already stated earlier in the video as well, if you have, Saber taken care of, then use the Foolish Burial to send the Glow Bulb and vice versa as well. And that is it for the main deck. Now moving on to the extra. I run 2 Frightfur Tiger. Sucks that I don't have matching copies. I really want to get a second Secret Rare one. The card is so beautiful as Secret Rare. It's your destruction card. When it's fusion summoned, you target cards on the field equal to the number of fusion materials used and destroy them. And all Frightfur monsters you control gain 300 attack for each Fluffal monster and Frightfur monster you control. You can only control 1 Frightfur Tiger, but it's pop power. It's power up power even with your Sabertooth. So you can hit very big numbers having that Tiger and then a bunch of other monsters on the field. And I also run 2 Frightfur Kraken. It can attack. Basically, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard. This card cannot attack directly the turn activated. This card can make a second attack during each battle phase, and once per turn at the end of the battle phase, if this card battled, change it to defense. So it's a very defensive card, being able to take care of pesky cards from your opponent that say, obviously this card cannot be destroyed by card effects. Since Kraken just sends it to the graveyard, you avoid that problem altogether. And then probably the best fusion in the deck is Frightfur Sabretooth. I run 3 of this card. When this card is fusion summoned, you can target 1 Frightfur monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and all Frightfur monsters you control gain 400 attack. And if this card was fusion summoned using 1 or more fusion materials, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So you can even go for other Frightfur Sabretooths in the graveyard with this card special summon, meaning you can just fill up the field, and then if you just know how to reuse them as well, it can definitely help. I've done big combos where I just got a lot of these out. You're reusing its effect and other fusion monsters to hit for big numbers because of the effect of all Frightfur monsters you control gain 400 attack, and that can just basically stack very well with each individual Sabretooth. And then for the one-ofs, 1 Frightfur Sheep and 1 Frightfur Wolf. Sheep, we already talked about with the instant fusion. Wolf just helps. I've OTK'd plenty good number of times with this card with the multiple attacks you can do. Same basis as Tiger. Sucks now with Link format unless you have your arrows set up. Being able to pop the field with Frightfur Tiger and then, using Frightfur Fusion to banish those cards you use for the fusion of Tiger in the graveyard to make Wolf, and then just attack multiple times per game once you know your opponent's field is clear. And I also run 1 Thousand Eyes Restrict. This is in here just as an additional instant fusion target, being able to summon this, and then also have it as a Link Karibo monster, if need be, to open up my arrows some more if it's taking up the extra deck spot. And then for the Link monsters, 1 Land Fornicus. This is here for easy Link arrows with any monster basically in the deck. If I have to use Sabers for the special summon with a Fluffal monster, making this card out. If I have to go for any other plays, that definitely does help as well. Also, 1 Underclock Taker and 1 Link Karibo to finish off the Link monsters that I run. Now, which I'll get to in a second with the Synchro and Exceed monsters, which I'll talk to, what option I would take out for the Underclock Taker if you want to go another route. But lastly, 1 Nature Beast. This works with the Glow Up Bulb and the Fluffal Dog. Getting this card out, like I said, shuts down a lot of spell-reliant decks as well. And 1 number 38 Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy. This card very easy to make with the Sabretooths, so you can really benefit from the overlay right there for sure. Making the number 38 that way definitely. Now, the one thing I was talking about before is another Exceed I might run. If you wanted to take out the Underclock Taker, I might recommend maybe like a Tornado Dragon or a Buguska, just as an additional Exceed option for your level 4 monsters. Can definitely help with the plays like Penguin with Dog, and then Exceeding if you can Fusion Summon. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Once again, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.